All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Monks, and I'm here to talk about the Capstone project that I've been working on for the last 10 weeks. It's called GIF Soup. And before we get a little too deep into the technical, I want to show off a live demo of what it can do. And so for this, I'm just showing off the video peeler, which exists as this little window right here. And how it works is you press the resize peeler button, and then you select the capture frame that you want to grab the GIF of. And I'm going to select this video here, but it works for anything. You can do a YouTube video and have it right there if you want, anything you want to. And then I'm going to start the video and start the recording. I'm just going to give it a couple seconds. All right. So done with the recording, and then we press the compile GIF button. I'm going to go ahead and save this here as Capstone defense.gif. And it takes a couple seconds to save, but a window will pop up here. Can take a little bit. There it goes. All right, GIF created successfully. So I'm going to open up that file that I just saved it in, capstone defense.gif. And there he goes. And this is a GIF, so it'll loop forever. All right, and so my project, GIF Soup, has 4 main pillars of functionality. There's the GIF generation tool, an image generation tool, an Imager.com uploading tool, and a video peeling tool, which is the tool you just saw. So I'm going to get a little bit into detail of each one. So the GIF encoder is what I started out working on, and what it does is it alters metadata nodes, specifically the graphics control extension node that a print writer has, to allow child nodes to be added. And each child node is allowed to have an image, and a delay timer is allowed to be set. And every time the delay timer is hit, it'll be able to change which image is showing on screen. And that's how you get a GIF to show several images and then also loop. And then at the end, it finally writes it all to an output stream, so you can save it as a .gif file. And what I realized really quickly into my research was that writing my own encoder was way outside of the scope of this class. I feel it would probably take me around 20 weeks to really complete if that was what my project was with the knowledge that I have now. So a little bit outside of what I'm looking for Capstone. But what me and Matt figured out was that if I were to base it on a couple other encoders I'd find, I'd still be able to make a working product, and I'd still be able to show that I understand what's going on, even though I didn't necessarily write it myself. And so it's based heavily off of 3 main encoders. Elliott Crew has a very easy one to read, and that's kind of what I based a lot of it on. But JMGE also has a convenient one, as does Kevin Weiner. However, the last 2 deal with actually modifying the binary that gets written to the output stream, which is a little outside of my comprehension level, so I stuck a little bit more towards Elliott Crew's. The next thing I worked on was the GIF editor. And what this tool does is it just exposes the GIF encoder that I just wrote to the user, so you can programmatically go through and create a GIF. It's got tools to rearrange the frames, remove frames, browse, and finally compile. And the next thing that I worked on, which took about 2 weeks, was the image editing suite. And excuse my art, I'm pretty bad at it. But it's got several tools which you can use to create images. And the main reason I wanted to create this was for subtitles in GIFs and GIFs. A lot of people like pulling them from movies and then having just one phrase or scene in it. And because there's no audio in GIFs, you really need a subtitle to translate that. And so that's the main reason I wanted to make this. And then next, the third pillar was the uploading suite. And for this, Imager.com is a website that allows users to post images or GIFs and then hotlink to share on aggregating websites such as Reddit or 9gag or Facebook. And how it works is you make calls to their API. They have a URL that you type to, and you call a post method and make sure that it's got the right headers. But first, to be able to use their API, you need to whitelist your app by telling them what your app does. And when you do so, they give you a key and a client ID. And when you make those calls to their post method, you need to make sure to pass them your key and your ID so that they know exactly who's using their app. They don't want somebody to be able to upload 10,000 images an hour and just bog down their servers, so that's why they do that. And to actually upload an image, you have to first convert the image to base 64, which is just an encoding. and then you send a post to their URL with the correct image data and your ID and key. And then finally, that will return you a XML or JSON message. You can pick either one based on which URL you call. And then from that, I just parsed the URL and the status code to make sure everything was working properly, and then finally give the user the URL to the image that they just uploaded. And the last thing I worked on was the video peeler suite, which you guys just saw in action. And how it works is when you press the resize peeler, it tracks you select a portion of the screen, and it tracks that portion of the screen, and then periodically takes a snapshot of the image that you highlighted, and then turns the images that it took a picture of into a GIF that you then can compile. And so the main two hurdles that I ran into was, first off, how to make the peeler. I went through 3 different iterations to make sure it worked properly. And the first one was I was planning on going programmatically through the frames and pulling an image of that frame and then turning that into a GIF. However, I quickly ran into a couple APIs that were not very functional, so I kind of had to scrap that and then worked on my second project, which was actually embedding a video player into my app. But I ran into the same issues. A lot of APIs were outdated and not very convenient to use. In addition to that, I also wanted to do YouTube peeling. And YouTube's API only lets you put the video players that they return into a website. They don't allow you to put it in a Java app, so I would have had to open up a web browser and then go to that link, and I didn't really want to do that. It was a little too complicated. It's not that it was too complicated. It's not what I wanted to do. It didn't seem very convenient. And so I finally ended up on my third idea, which is the screen capture concept, and I like it really well because it's easy to use. In addition to that, it's also very convenient. It works for any video type because it just has to appear on screen. It doesn't matter what type of image it is or what type of video it is. And the second big hurdle I ran into was the Imgur uploading. When I was writing unit tests, I realized that the program didn't translate well to unit testing because for the unit test of the GIF uploading, I was just checking to make sure the status code was correct and the file type that was uploaded was a .gif. And due to that, I was able to pass the test and fail the deliverable due to the fact that it was only uploading the first frame as a .gif. The status code was 200, so it was functional, but you don't want the first GIF of a frame. You want the full GIF. And so there's a few things I learned. I first off learned that GIF encoding is a really, really complex task. It's not something for the faint of heart. You need to commit to it if you want to work on it. And I also got a lot of experience using APIs. Imgur and Apache's HTTP client are the two that I ended up using in my project. Zuggle and VLCJ are two video modifying APIs, but neither of them were functional. I spent several hours getting them to actually work in my program, only to have them crash the second they hit a line. So that was kind of frustrating. And I also learned a lot about source control. I've used source control several times throughout my Neumont career. However, I've never used source control with my own project individually. And I've never been the project leader in a project using source control. So I never had to set it up or really worry about too much, just had to worry about committing and pulling correctly. And so that was a lot of learning as well. And then finally, the GUI, the drawing tool, was actually really complicated as well. Drawing on a canvas, especially lines that aren't straight. If I were to draw something like this, it's really hard to track that because the only way that the graphics controls can track that is point to point, and so we would just draw a straight line, and that's not really what the user input. So I had to figure out a way around that. And then finally, the undo and redo functionality, I had to go through a couple different iterations of my project to get it functional, but in the end I used a series of stacks just to track it, and if the user ever hit undo, it would pop it off one stack and push it onto the other, which made it pretty convenient. And so these are some of the technologies I used. The open source encoders that I found were Elliot Cruz, JMGE, and Kevin Weiner's. And the libraries that I ended up using in my projects were, again, HTTP services, which is how you actually call methods. Well, it's a convenient way to call methods programmatically, such as the one to upload images to Imgur. And then, of course, Imgur's API, because that's what I was making calls to. And some of the deprecated libraries that I got stuck with were Zuggle, VLCJ, and FMJ. VLCJ stands for the VLC Media Player.java, which is a very inconsistent library, but it's supposed to wrap VLC, but I could not get it working. And FMJ is a freedom from media in Java. It's meant to be a wrapper for Java Media Framework, which is their first-party library that's very non-functional, and FMJ is meant to kind of wrap around that. And if I had a little bit more time to work on my project, the first two things I would want to do is allow the image editor to make changes to all frames. So if the user wanted to create a subtitle in a GIF, it would do it for every single frame in the GIF rather than have to do each one individually, which would be very time consuming. And then finally, I would like to finish GIF uploading so it didn't just upload the first frame. All right. Thanks for your time. Any questions? Yeah?
How did you do the screen capture?
I'm using the robot.createScreenCapture. The complicated part about that is the robot class in Java. The complicated part about that is to track where the mouse was to be able to make the highlighted square. Mouse events are tracked by JPanels, and so you can't track something that's outside of the window that you're trying to look at. So for the video peeler, it only took up a very small amount of the frame. So what I had to do was actually I can show you. I had to have this other semi-transparent layer appear on top. I don't know if you can tell that it's transparent, but it's just a little bit. And then highlight the area that they wanted to select. Otherwise, this window can't tell where the mouse is the second I move it out.
The other question I don't recall, did you take a software design class?
I did.
You did not?
Oh, I took software engineering. Yeah, I did not take software design.
Is that a cliffhanger?
No, he's not accountable.
Yes. All right, Herrera?
So one big component of this was your project management skills. Can you tell us what did you do to pull this off? And you kind of gave us an outline in your presentation, but can you fill it out in a little more detail?
So to keep track of my project, I used source control. I used Git, which for the first 4 or 5 weeks, like I said, I've used Git before, but not that in detail, and I actually ended up not branching. And I hadn't really had any experience, so I didn't realize that was wrong. But after a comment that I should probably look into Git a little bit more, I took a couple tutorials because I realized something was wrong. And for the first 5 weeks, I think I branched once, and in the last 5 weeks, I branched 8 times. So I think I learned something there. Yeah.
Do you have a follow-up? What is the correlation? So Git and source control management are not project management.
Okay.
What is the correlation between source control and Git and project management and branching?
Okay, so by project management, you mean how I kept track of my project? I'm a little confused as to what the term means, I suppose.
So I guess the way I meant it was you had an overarching idea which you quickly found was not doable in the amount of time that you had. So you scaled back the project and you kept dividing and conquering. Okay. So the project management software that you used, Git, how did that play into your time management, into you prioritizing which aspects of the project
Gotcha.
first?
Okay, so I just had a simple text file that I also tracked with Git that was just a work log. And what I did is I figured out this week I'm going to be working on the GIF encoder. And I'd break that down into exactly what steps I wanted to have work in the GIF encoder. And those would all individually be a checkbox. And then as I completed them, I would check them off and then what day I did them in. And then at the end, if I had every single check mark done in one section of the project, then I knew that that part was complete. And so that was a file that was tracked in Git. Every time I pushed, I would make sure that I would have updates with that. Oh.
And so how does that correlate to the branching process?
Branching is a way to manage parts of your code without managing the entire project. So if I wanted to if I had my project functional as at week 3, if I had my GIF encoder done, and then week 4 I wanted to start working on the editor, the GUI that modified the GIF encoder, then what I could do is I could create a branch there. And then that way I would be able to keep my working code separate from the code I'm working on. And if I had any problems that caused everything else in my program to crash in that branch, I could just remove the branch rather than having to rewrite my entire program. Yeah?
So you said at the beginning that you looked into a GIF encoder and you said, well, this is way over my head. My question then is, do you feel like this project was technically difficult?
If I started out, I feel like this project was way outside of my scope. But after I removed the encoder, I still feel like there's a lot of complexity and a lot of things that I learned while doing it. So if that's what you're measuring by technical complexity, then yes, I feel it's technically complex enough.
you gave us a demo of the video peeler. Looks like that's working.
Do you want to see all the other ones?
Well, not all of them.
Okay.
But I would like to see some more of your project.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
Just sort of open up the UI and show us some of the things that you're proud of.
Yeah. So how it works is my project has kind of 4 main parts to it. And if you'd like, I can show the, I actually can't show the imager upload because my computer's wireless card stopped working about 2 days ago. So I'm not able to actually go to the internet right now. So I can't do that. But I can pop open the image editor. And then in here, you can browse for images. And then do all sorts of things with that. There's a pencil tool to draw. You can change the color. There's boxes that you can make.
Can you show, so you called out the pencil tool in the challenge you had. Can you make a wavy line with the pencil tool like you did on the board?
Yeah, absolutely. So here it comes.
Okay.
And that's in comparison to the line tool here, which is just the straight line.
So your wavy line tool is still using a point-to-point. You're not using
Yes.
elliptic
It's
algorithms to create smooth curves.
It's not creating smooth curves. What it's doing is every time the mouse kind of reaches a new direction, oopsies, wrong tool.
It creates a point.
Yeah, it creates a point and then makes, so every single one of these is that's a line, that's a line, that's a line, that's a line, and that's probably a line. Does that make sense? And then it keeps track of all of that in one thing, and then that way, so if you undo it, it undoes the entire object rather than just one. Yeah.
How difficult would it be to refresh as you're drawing so you could see what you were doing?
The way to do that is to just fire an event to repaint every single time that an object gets added to the screen, and I think it would take me probably, I'm going to say 5 or 6 hours to get that functional. The problem is it really starts getting laggy the more and more lines you start drawing. So, Sean, did you have a question? Okay.
So you got to ask yourself, there are people who can refresh as they draw. How
Yes.
do they do that?
Like I said, it's just you have to fire an event every single time that you.
Theirs doesn't get laggy. How do they do it?
I suppose that's a good question. I did not ask that. Yeah.
I'm an avid blogger. So if I wanted to use this device, where could I get it? Do you have any plans to monetize this?
I plan on giving this out for free online. I know that if I was one of you guys, someone that didn't make this project over the last 10 weeks, I wish somebody out there gave it out for free. And so due to that fact, I'm going to put it out there for free. So if anyone does want to use it, it'll be out there. And once I put it up, I'll be having a link going around school. So if you want it, I'll make sure to get it to you.
How would you use that to springboard into money, though?
One of the important things.
I don't want to work for free for the rest of your life.
One of the important things is to make sure it's still associated to you, so that if people find this project and want it, the easiest way to get it is through me. And in that, they'll know that it's from me. And if I go to Future Business, if I go to an interview and say, hey, do you want to see a cool project I made? I can show them this by just going to the URL. We done?
Anything else to show us in your app
Um,
that you're proud of?
I can show the GIF editor. I'm really proud of the video peeler. I think that's the coolest thing I did, so that's why I was focusing on showing that.
Yeah, you lost me a little bit on the video peeler on how you captured the out of window.
Okay, oh yeah, I can definitely go into that. That's actually something I really liked. So when this window pops up, it creates a JPanel or a JFrame that's the size of the entire screen that's semi-transparent.
I missed, okay.
Yeah, you can barely see it up there.
Yep.
So that's how I tricked it into knowing that. Yeah.
So you have a lot of features, which I really don't understand all of them. But when you created those features and the design of the layout and all of those, did you design for you, or did you have a certain audience or users in mind?
So I'm not a very artsy person, so I didn't spend a lot of time on making the UI look crisp and clean. I expect everyone that's going to use my project to know what GIFs are, to have experience at least seeing them, to know what to expect. And if you have experience with GIFs, I'm assuming you have experience with a computer. So you can read buttons and know what they do. So I'm expecting my users to at least have enough experience with a computer to run a program, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So So you mentioned that you were having problems with the image upload. It was just uploading the first frame.
Yeah.
I know that your wireless card kind of bummed out on you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever figure out maybe why it was doing that, or was it just one of those unknowns?
So one of the main reasons why is because Java doesn't actually have a GIF class anywhere. That's not something that exists. Their image class has an encode to base64. I believe it's java.io.encode new base64 object or something along those lines. And so it's really easy to upload an image because you can just translate the image using their library to turn the image into a base64 version of it. But there's no way to do that for a GIF. The only way I could really think about doing it would be having to encode every single image individually and fire them all up. However, that doesn't put them all together, if you know what I mean. It just would have 6 different uploads rather than one GIF of 6 frames. Yeah.
Hey, I hate to be the slideshow guy, but I'm just really grateful that you put this in a way that like someone like me can understand. Like I'm feeling like I understand what you're doing, and like the flow of your presentation, you did a really great job.
Oh, thank you.
Did you actually practice
Yeah.
giving your presentation? And,
I practiced about 4 times today, and Mark Herrera gave me some one-on-one advice that I think helped me out a lot.
great job.
You know, it might have been a cool idea, would have been to use your video peeler to capture a demo that you then used as part of your.
Oh, that would have been cool. That's a good idea.
To be fair, one of the things that we brought up, and I can see a direct application of this for us here at school, especially with the reporting capabilities we've got, we could use this device, I think, as it stands to help people improve presentations for, I don't know, Capstone next quarter by recording, and then we can create GIFs on the fly of stuff that is awesome, like this, or stuff that is not awesome.
Is there a limit to the length of the GIF?
No, however, the encoder itself can get kind of laggy the more frames you add. I don't know if you noticed, but it took about 5 or 6 seconds, and that was just from a 5 or 6 second long clip. If you get to a minute, I can only imagine it would probably take 5, 10, 20 minutes maybe.
Have you tried?
I have not tried.
The long capture? Or you
No.
skipped it to like 5 seconds?
I think the longest one I did was about 30, and that took about a minute. And after that, I'm worried my computer might start melting. So.
That raises the question, why is it linear in its conversion?
I can't actually say for sure. GIF encoding is still a complex topic, but if I were to say, it's because the writer needs time to handle each image and handle each note.
You don't control what's going on during that.
Not precisely. Like I said, the encoder I wrote is heavily based off of someone else's, so I don't know the exact technical details going into it, and I certainly do not know the algorithm that the print writer uses to write child nodes. So,
But it's stuff that with a little more research.
yes, definitely. And I think if I dove into the other two, the binary writers, I could probably find out a little bit more, but I did not. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Josh.